Good morning. This is Coach Anton here from Coach Anton P2R Limited. Basically, just for today's discussion, we'll be continuing with our series that we've got on sports mental coaching in professional sports. Now, we'll be taking a deeper look on how to use and benefit from, not just apply sports mental coaching. This is very important because many people I've heard before say to me that sports mental coaching is things that they've been trying to apply and they're not getting any results, so they don't see the benefits. But then I asked them about how they applied it, and I found out that they did not apply it correctly or at the right time. And that maybe is a very big thing to understand more about, and that's where professional services come in. If you guys are interested in that, please remember to get in touch with me afterwards. But in the meantime, here is more information. So today's topic we're going to be covering is more on the actual team management itself. But let's go through all the topics we're covering in the series. In this series, we're covering sports mental coaching for individual player management, which we did in the last one, sports mental coaching for team management, which is today's one, and then sports mental coaching in youth development, sports mental coaching for a technical team, which is coaching the coach, and in the vicious cycle of frustration and how to solve it. The last one we'll do over two. And on this whole series, we will obviously focus on each and every one of them first, and then I'm going to break down every different topic within it and discuss those in shorter videos as well. So for today's sports mental coaching for team management. All right, so firstly, tactical visualization. What is tactical visualization? And just before I go on with that, it's important that you understand that in this series, we try to elaborate on each one of these. And when it comes to team management, my focus here is from a team perspective. It is not just using any of these like visualization for free kick, but which is individual. It is for a team perspective. So I'm going to look at everything like visualization and how to apply it within a team setup. And I want to look at it and try to pick up a few pointers. Any questions you may have, please pop them in the comments below. And I'll attend to that as soon as I can get on any one of them. I get a chance for that. All right, so tactical visualization is basically literally having your whole tactical plan or game plan that you've got and breaking it down to the individual, to the group, and to team perspective, and allowing players to visualize this prior to the game, be it the night before or even in the week before that, running up to the game, or be it even just in a change room a half an hour or so before the game. That all depends on the planning of the tactical team and when you want to work it into place, or when they're going to have their tactical game plan for that specific match presented to the team. So that's playing quite a big part. But you literally visualize everything for that game, seeing yourself doing what the coach expects of you in the different scenarios you might be facing that the coach might have prompted you on, and then you are much more prepared when you go into the game as well. I have found that this have even helped teams who were conceding goals early in the game to stop conceding goals early in the game because they see themselves preventing the errors they have previously committed, and when they commit the errors, correcting it very quickly so that they prevent conceding the goal. Doing that can definitely get you out of that nervous wreck part of the early stages of the match and get out there and actually do very well. Tactical visualization has worked in the past for many teams that I've been involved with, and I definitely saw the results of this. All right, so goal setting. What is goal setting? And why is it so important? We all know about goal setting. Set your goals, make sure you've got goals out there, but what goals? And how do you do them? I always say that you've got to go look at what do you want as an end result and be realistic about it. Like, is this something that is really achievable now? Like, say, for example, now we want to win the league. Well, it's all great you want to win the league, but is that realistic? If you just got promoted from the lower division to a higher division, I don't think that it's realistic because you haven't even played games in a higher division. So you're not yet adjusted to it. The whole environment is different. Now, some teams would be basing such statements on the fact that they might have beaten one higher division side when that side fielded a, should I say, weaker team because they might have played him while they were in a lower division in a cup game. and fielded a weaker team to gain some match time for players who's not getting game time, lost the game to the lower division side, and now the lower division side thinks they are ready to win the league at a higher division. Now, as ridiculous as this sounds, it's not so uncommon. So that happened before, and I've seen that. So you've got to be realistic, because those things will demotivate a team. One of the teams who were very vocal about this in the last decade in South Africa, getting the way to the top, got relegated the very same season they said they're going to come there to win the league. So they managed to get promoted again to the top flight, and fortunately this time around they learned the lessons, and they were aiming at maybe finishing in top 8 and at least avoiding relegation. So it was a better goal. The goal setting was realistic, and they've adjusted. Fortunately, they've learned a lesson. But what you want to do is you literally want to put short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. So you start with the long-term goal you want, you break it down all the way through down until you've got a mid-term goal where I want to achieve somewhere on the way there, and then short-term goals, which is your link to your immediate goals as to what I need to do right now to achieve that. So you need to break it down so that you've got all these different type of goals and set of goals, and the more goals you've got building towards your big goal, the better, because the more you can see whether you're on track or not, and when you might need to work a little bit harder to speed up, or when you maybe need to totally readjust your goal because it's just out of line. Don't make it too challenging. Your team will get demotivated, but also don't make it too easy. That will also let them lack motivation. All right. Leader skills. So when you're looking at leader skills, what's important there is you're basically looking here at not just having a leader as a player, but how and where to use him for the sake of the team. And that's very important when it comes to team management and sports mental coaching for that. So I need to know, where do I want this leader to be? And many coaches think of, I want my captain to be in this position or that position. Not just your captain should be a leader. I don't mean all of them should lead. Remember, one of your best qualities of a leader is being able to be led. And that is something that's very important. One of the greatest qualities of a leader is being able to be led. So you don't always need to lead as the leader of the team, but you can be a leader in the team that assists the team towards its goals, because you are able to fill the gaps that is left open where the leader could not cover everything. Right, so when maybe the captain couldn't see everything because it's not everywhere, you can be a leader there. Maybe the captain is, they say, a striker. Unlikely, most coaches don't make a striker a captain, but say it's a striker. Then what about your defenders? Is he going to be able to communicate with them? The goalkeeper? No, he's not even there. So what you want is leaders to back as well. So your goalkeeper could be a leader. In your defense, you could have leaders. In midfield, you could have leaders. Up front as a striker, you could have leaders. Each department on the field, right? Each segment on the field, so that you basically work on all your different aspects and let them link with each other, but have one captain that's overseeing everything, of course, and keeping the ship afloat. On the side of the field, you also want as many leaders as possible. I love a technical team that is full of leaders that respect each other and allow one to basically give the full direction, but the rest is making sure they do their role in making that happen. Good qualities of leaders working underneath another leader, being able to be led. All right, so you want these leadership skills that really help you towards your missions and help your team, especially when things are busy going wrong or not according to plan in a match. That's very important. They really need your leaders in that scenario. All right, then you've got coping mechanisms. So in the case of coping mechanisms, you're basically looking at scenarios where an adverse situation has caused some negative impact on the team, right? So let's use an example. Coping mechanisms. That could be towards weather, right? Maybe I'm getting frustrated because the weather, the wind is intense. I clear the ball and it lands back a few meters from me, right? Now, that can be rather frustrating, and I've seen cases where matches are played with wind being so strong, you clear the ball into the air and the ball lands behind where you cleared it from. I personally played in 1 or 2 games like that, but you get that more in areas such as Cape Town in South Africa, they can have that type of wind. It gets quite crazy. So you're trying to keep the ball on the ground when you play in those environments, unless if you have the wind in your favor. All right, and you can use it. Now, let's use another classical example when it comes to coping mechanisms is your stadium, right? What about the stadium? Now, I mentioned weather, but what about the stadium itself? So there can be a lot of noise from then, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. So say it is something negative. Say there's a lot of booing suddenly happening. You're playing against a crowd that maybe they're racist towards you, or maybe the crowd is simply booing the opposition because they're trying to get their home team to win, and they can get rather hostile. So any of these hostile crowd type of scenarios can be very hectic towards a team and have adverse negative effects towards the team as well. And when you look at that, what skills can you use? What mechanisms is there to use in the scenarios? Well, you want something that help you to block out your thinking, right? So you could use what we refer to as the zone. Now, what does the zone do? That's using just got such a high state of focus or concentration on something specific that you almost take in or get disturbed by nothing else in your surrounding other than what you are busy with. And it normally leads to a very high performance with what you are busy focusing on. And that is often achieved within sports by various different players out there. And I always encourage this. If you can get to a point of using the zone, you could really benefit from it. I personally like it when players are able to get into the zone. However, it can also be negative because remember, you can also negatively be blocked off from everything else. So just make sure when you do practice that skill that you do it because of a high concentration and focus on the game positively. So, and not from a negative perspective. All right. So that is very important. That is one aspect, one coping mechanisms. Another one is keywords. So you could use keywords where you're basically in part of self-talk, where you use a specific keyword that means something bigger, that helps to snap you out of a mental state you might be entering where you get distracted or you get ball watching, as we call it. Maybe you're just watching the game instead of positioning yourself to where you should be next. For example, a goalkeeper while the team is in attack. And I've seen goalkeepers being caught offline or out of position simply because there was someone who had a massive, powerful kick and a counter attack, and they scored from their own half, and the goalkeeper was in some awkward position. But why? Because the goalkeeper at that stage were maybe ball watching and not focusing on the game. And I think that's very important that we get that clear. So keywords is something like, Anton, switch on, right? And I can use that. That's a very short phrase, just basically those 2 or 3 words, and you can get yourself back into action. It can way bigger meaning, like snap out of this, let's focus on the game, let's focus on what we're doing right now. But you don't have to say that long sentence. You could simply have a short keyword or keyword sentence, such as Anton, switch on. But it must be loud, it must be instructive, and you must preferably use a name in it. All right. Now, if my teammate knows that that's my keyword, and we're in a team scenario and I'm busy dwelling off, focusing on everything else but what I'm supposed to do, being distracted, as we would call it, then if a teammate at that stage shouts, Anton, switch on, that should also, because it's a keyword that's being used for that other meaning, they should also be able to snap me out of what I'm dwelling on or what I'm distracted by, so that I can focus back on what I need to, right? In the example I've just given. So keywords is a different aspect, and it's good to involve the team and not just the individual when it comes to team play and games. All right. So for the next one, right, we basically have team spirit and team building. Now, in this case scenario, you must have a good team spirit, but you can't have a good team spirit if you did not apply team building. So what's the difference? Team building is obviously the exercise or the actions that leads to a good team spirit. And I'm going to use examples. So you might have a fun activity out there of just going to some play park together as a team and having some fun together. But for many, that is not applicable. Depends on the age group of your team and the gaps between them. They're sometimes really vast, and it's difficult to use that. However, what you could also use is you could also use things that where the team actually goes on a camp where everyone is now forced to be in the same type of scenario. And then they also have a lot of activities in that that is not just related to their specific sport, but is related to building a good team spirit. And I think that is important that one do that. So team building activities are crucial, but you could also incorporate into your training session. You could say, I don't have a budget to go out on camp or to do all these other things. Well, maybe you don't, but how about just applying a few fun things inside your sessions? Maybe your session is scheduled for a day, and instead of going onto the field and just playing normal soccer, the guys get there and they suddenly find this massive, big, bloated ball, and one of your big training balls, and they go and they end up having to play with that ball, and it becomes a lot more fun. It becomes different. It becomes total different game. I'm just giving an example. Or alternatively, say today we're playing in our session, but you guys are not allowed to use your feet. So you change the game. Instead of, hey, we're playing soccer and not allowed to use our hands, all of a sudden we're playing soccer, we're using our hands, we're using our head, we're not allowed to use our feet. So you just change the environment. And what it will do is people who are maybe extremely skillful with the ball at their feet might not be so skillful with the ball at their hands. And other guys who are in the opposite might also have a scenario where suddenly they are skillful with it at their hands more than with their feet. And all of a sudden you've got different players who become your key players in that session. And it just makes the session more fun, and the team really rely more on each other going forward as well. Great team spirit and a lot more respect between the players for each other. Right. Then, as the next one, we basically look at motivational uplifting communication. Right. So, what is the difference, and or is there a difference? Well, partly there's a difference, but remember that uplifting communication could be motivational, and motivational communication could be uplifting. So, what's the difference? Well, simply as it is, uplifting is I'm going to be speaking about encouraging someone about something they're doing or something they've been doing, or they're down and I'm trying to urge them on. All right, there's more uplifting. So they did something right and I compliment that. It's uplifting. Motivational is more of I'm speaking about what can be achieved, trying to motivate the team, saying, I believe in you, you can do this, let's go for it, right? So it's a very close line between the two, hard to differentiate between them sometimes as well. But it's important to understand you don't need to differentiate. They both have the same effect. You basically want your team to be motivated and or uplifted as individuals and as a team so that you can go out there and get a necessary result. So make sure your communication are building and not breaking, to put it in short. Right, so building communication where you're really encouraging people, you are urging them on to go and perform better, and not by insulting them, but by encouraging them instead. All right, so which is a very important aspect when it comes to that. Communication is crucial, and please note that cultural differences can lead to communication being misunderstood. So try to understand the cultures of one another in your team so that you can really try to communicate with each other at a level that's acceptable or suitable to that specific individual. Right, so yes, it's part of the team, but you need to think of the individual. They're all part of it, right? So then we're looking at understanding learning phases to avoid frustration and to assist others not to get frustrated. Now, this is very important. So when we're looking at understanding learning phases, what are we talking about here and what is this exactly? So let's go into a bit more detail. So in your earlier learning phase, one must first be explained what needs to be done and how to do it. So in other words, first an understanding of it. And then the next one is going to apply it, but now still having to think through the process because the body is not used at doing it automatically, right? So you've got to think through the process. It can be very frustrating and can lead to a lot of errors on and off the field when implementing this. Right, so you need to think through the process. Early learning phase. Next learning phase is becomes semi-automated, where parts of it you're starting to do automatically, but quite a lot of it you still have to think through, or you have to think about before doing it and then do it automatically as it starts progressing. And then you get to where we get to a fully automated phase. What's the difference there and what is that? That is a phase that I personally see as a really great thing to achieve for a good habit and for anything good that you're doing. But in terms of negative habits, it's a dangerous part to have is that a lot of negative habits are also fully automated. That's where you start doing things automatically without thinking through it anymore, and without having to think through it at all. You almost don't think about the steps. You just think about the result you want, and you go and do the steps, and all of a sudden that's what changes, right? And when it comes to decision making, which is one I want to get to, is where people get very frustrated in a game, because decision making on something new is still not going to be trained as well. So decision making needs to be trained, not just the actual passing or shooting. So if someone has been passing and shooting without doing that in matches, and it is something new, like maybe I'm left-footed and I'm practicing my right foot, and in that situation, if I get into a match and I didn't practice that in pressured environments, the match is a pressured environment, my decision making might revert back to habits of where I might try to use the foot I'm more comfortable with, which is my left, rather than using the right, even in a situation or position where the right would have been the best or the easiest to use. And that could often lead to the difference between a goalkeeper making a save or you scoring, because of split seconds you might be losing trying to get it to your stronger foot. So that is a few things to keep in mind. And as teammates, be calm about this and try not to be frustrated about this. And when frustrations happen because of someone being in an early learning phase and still having a higher error ratio, please make sure that you encourage your teammates rather than breaking them down. Having uplifting and motivational communication in that situation, helping them not to get frustrated, and at the same time, assisting you not to get frustrated, which is very important. Then, gameplay. Very similar to tactical visualization, I'm going to mention there. So in gameplay, it's important that every player knows their role as an individual, in a group format, and as in a team format in what is needed in the actual game. So that when you are playing in transitional gameplay from defense to attack or attack to defense, for example, you are able to control what you are doing to the point of knowing the actual tactics and expectations of you for that specific match or in that specific match, making sure everyone in the team know about it. And gameplay also comes down to the ability to make decisions in the field without only receiving instructions. Now, why is that important? If I only do things based on instructions and I become almost like a remote controlled player, yeah, that's what I call it, the remote control coaches when they do that, but when they tell every player what to do. But you basically want to not be a remote control player, because when you get in position when you can't hear a coach, you suddenly might find yourself not confident or confused as to what to do next, because you're not conditioned to make the decisions yourself and just being guided on a decision making. Very important point for coaches to consider as well, because sometimes you might just find yourself in a stadium with noise or environment of noise and a player can't hear you. Now that is very important. All right. Then we're looking at team cohesion. When you're looking at team cohesion, why is this so, and why is this so important, and what exactly is this? Team cohesion is where the team literally starts forming an understanding of movement between each other, and as we call it, they're clicking. And so you literally have a very clear understanding of where the other person is likely to move or what action they're likely to take next, to the point that when you receive the ball and maybe you've got 4 guys around you, need to dribble out of there before you release a pass, you might have a scenario where you can't look at the run of your teammate, but you know where he's likely to run, and you end up taking the ball, getting enough space available between these players in your dribbling, and release the pass into that space. Your teammate gets it, go and finish the goal. Everyone thinks, wow, what a great move. But the player on the ball might have never even lifted his head and seen the players run when he had the ball. He might have lifted it only and observed the other player's position prior to receiving the ball. And because they're playing together, because they've been practicing a lot of these things, they start having an understanding of where the other guy's most likely to move at this position or this specific scenario, and release the ball straight into that position for a player to receive it and go finish the move or do the next move. So that is very important, that we understand team cohesion is not formed overnight, and it cannot be formed if you always allow verbal communication. You have to get to a point in your sessions where you also basically restrict what type of communication can be used. You might have to tell your players in sessions, don't use verbal communication today at all. You're not allowed to tell or talk to each other at all. You can point, you can you can obviously, you can point, you can have expression, but you cannot speak to each other. So what this does is it gets players to start really using their next sense, which is that of almost being able to foretell or predict where the teammate is going to be moving next based on the gameplay. So the observation starts increasing, because without it, they suddenly can't know where to put the ball. And that's very important, that you do this. As much as we as coaches tell our players to be verbal out there and be vocal out there and to speak with each other and to direct where they want the ball, there's times when you might not be able to hear each other. So you need to actually have sessions where you restrict players where they can't speak at all. And that will help you to develop and build good team cohesion between players. All right. That's basically that. If you've got any further questions, obviously there's a lot more to say on each of these topics, and that's why I'm going to break them down into smaller videos as we go on with the series. So in order for you to get that information as well, make sure that you subscribe to the channel at the bottom of our screen here. And if you want to get in touch with us for professional services, here's our contact details. The cell phone number here is obviously, it doesn't have the international code there, so that is +27 for South Africa. So the number would be +27 74194 8212. I'll also put it on the screen so you can see that, and you can WhatsApp us to that number as well to get in touch with us. Then I can get back to you and communicate with you in regards to whatever it is that you might have questions on. But it would be great if you put it in the comments so anybody else can learn from the answers I give you as well, and that will benefit everyone that comes to this platform. All right. Thanks for your time. Great having you guys on board. And if you please do us a favor, spread us. Remember, sharing is caring. Make sure you help many others out there to get this information, and in the process also assist us to get ourselves out there on the market or on the platform that's available. All right, that's it from my side. I'm Coach Anton from Coach Anton P2 Limited.